Have you ever felt like you're the one who's always giving more in your relationships? It's a heavy, draining feeling, isn't it? It's that slow, sinking sensation that you're the one rowing the boat while the other person is just enjoying the ride. But what if I told you the problem isn't simply that you give too much? What if the real underlying issue is that you give to feel secure? That small distinction is so easy to miss, but it explains almost everything about why you feel so exhausted and unappreciated. Think about it. In the beginning, overgiving doesn't feel like a problem at all. In fact, it feels like genuine, enthusiastic care. You're the one who checks in first, sending that good morning text to make sure their day starts right. You're the one who offers help without even being asked, noticing they look stressed and immediately jumping in to lighten their load. You adjust your schedule without a second thought, moving around your own commitments to make time for them, even when your calendar is already bursting at the seams. You make endless space for their feelings, listening for hours as they vent about their bad day, pushing your own needs and emotions to the side. You constantly try to be the understanding one, letting small frustrations and disappointments slide just to keep the peace and avoid any friction. At first, it all feels so right, so productive. It feels like you're actively building something beautiful, strengthening the connection, and weaving this incredible safety net of support around your relationship. You feel needed, you feel important, you feel like you're the glue holding it all together. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, something starts to shift. The initial warmth and satisfaction you felt begins to cool. You start to feel more and more tired, not just physically from running around, but emotionally drained, like a battery that's constantly being used but never recharged. You become keenly, painfully aware of your own effort. It feels like you're running a marathon while they're just walking at a leisurely pace beside you. You notice all the things you're doing: the calls, the texts, the plans you make, the emotional labor you perform, and you can't help but notice what you're not receiving in return. The silence where you desperately hoped for a thank you, the space where you wish they would check on you for a change, the missed opportunities for them to show up for you in the same way you always show up for them. And that's when a quiet, nagging thought appears, whispering in the back of your mind, getting louder and louder each day. Why am I always the one giving more? This is where we need to look deeper, beneath the surface-level actions. Overgiving in relationships isn't just about being a generous, kind-hearted person. For many of us, it's about a pattern we learned long ago, a subconscious script that taught us how to secure our value and earn our place in someone's life. You can see it playing out in the smallest moments, the little habits that define the entire dynamic. You almost always send the first message, breaking the silence because the quiet feels like a dangerous distance, a sign that things are fading. You're constantly checking in on their feelings, asking, "Are you okay?" Or, "How was your day?" long before they ever think to ask you the same question. You find yourself meticulously adjusting your tone, softening your words to avoid any hint of conflict, because an argument feels like a direct threat to the connection itself. You say yes to plans you're not truly excited about. You agree to things you're not entirely comfortable with, all because the thought of disappointing them feels far more painful than the thought of compromising your own wants and needs. You give your time, your energy, your undivided attention, and you give so much emotional space that you become a container for all their problems, their stresses, and their anxieties. Slowly but surely, the entire relationship begins to take shape around this imbalance. You become the designated giver. They become the designated receiver. It's not a role you consciously audition for, but it's the one you find yourself playing every single day. But here's what's really happening underneath the surface. Your act of giving has become fundamentally linked to your sense of security. This isn't a conscious calculation you're making. It's a deeply ingrained emotional one. Somewhere in your past, maybe in your childhood with your parents, or in a previous painful relationship, Your mind learned a set of survival rules. It learned, if I give more, I will stay important to them. If I show up more, I won't be ignored or abandoned. If I make things easier for them and never cause any trouble, the connection will stay stable and predictable. So, giving stops being a simple, pure act of love. It transforms into a strategy. It becomes your primary tool for maintaining closeness, for reducing the terrifying uncertainty of human connection, and for protecting the relationship from falling apart. As the brilliant researcher Brené Brown once said, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves. But when your very sense of worth is tangled up with how much you give, setting a boundary feels like a huge, unacceptable risk. A boundary feels like you're pulling back, and your brain screams in panic. If I stop giving so much, they might leave. If I'm not useful, I'm worthless. Before we continue, a quick pause. If this reflection is resonating with you on a deep level, I've created more videos just like this in my Relationships and Identity playlist. Each one explores the hidden patterns in how we connect, respond, and find our way in relationships. And if you want more perspectives like this to land in your feed, make sure you subscribe to Daily Reset Lab. Now, there's another layer to this dynamic that makes it even more complicated and confusing. When you are the one constantly giving, you become hyper-aware of your own effort. You remember every single text you sent, every favor you did, every time you adjusted your plans for them. In your mind, your contributions are lit up in bright neon lights, but you don't always see the other person's effort in the same way. This isn't necessarily because their effort isn't there, but because their way of showing up might look completely different from yours. Their language of care might be different. Maybe they show care by quietly fixing things around the house, or by providing a sense of calm, unwavering stability that you've come to take for granted. Maybe their way of giving is less about active doing and more about steady being. Because their effort is in a different language, your own effort feels larger, more visible, and far more significant. This creates a powerful and painful perception of imbalance, even if the complete picture is more nuanced than you realize. But let's be completely honest. Sometimes the imbalance is very, very real. Because when one person consistently gives more and the other consistently receives more, the relationship adapts to that flow. The other person gets comfortable, even complacent, in the receiving role. This isn't always because they are a bad person or are intentionally taking advantage of you. It's often because the pattern you've both co-created allows it and even encourages it. And once a pattern is repeated enough times, it starts to feel normal, even expected, for both of you. There's another psychological trap here that keeps you stuck. Overgiving actually reduces clarity. When you give without pause, when you rush to fill every silence and solve every problem before it even fully forms, you never get to see how the other person would respond without your constant effort. You become the engine of the relationship, always pushing it forward. You fill the gaps. You maintain the momentum. You prevent any uncomfortable distance from ever appearing. But this also means you never find out what the relationship would actually look like on its own 2 feet. Would they step up if you step back? Would they initiate a conversation if you didn't? Would they notice you're struggling if you didn't announce it with a flashing sign? That deep, terrifying uncertainty is what keeps the pattern of overgiving locked firmly in place. You keep giving because you're afraid of what you might discover if you stop. So, what's the solution? How do we break this exhausting cycle? The shift isn't to suddenly stop giving, to become cold or distant, or to start keeping score. That would just be another reaction driven by fear, the flip side of the same coin. The real, lasting, and transformative shift is to separate the act of giving from your sense of worth. It's about learning to stop using your effort as proof that you matter. Because as long as your effort is your primary proof of value, you will always feel the desperate, anxious need to give more and more. you'll be stuck in a never-ending loop, trying to earn a love that, in a healthy relationship, should be freely given and received. Here is a small, practical shift you can start with today. The next time you feel that familiar urge to give more, to send that extra text just to check in again, to offer that unsolicited help, to immediately rearrange your day for them, just pause. Pause for one single moment. You're not pausing to stop caring. You're pausing to notice what you're feeling inside your own body. In that pause, ask yourself this simple question. Am I doing this because it brings me genuine joy to give in this moment? Or am I doing this because I'm feeling insecure and I'm trying to secure the connection? That single moment of awareness is incredibly powerful. It begins to change the meaning behind your actions. And over time, as you practice this pause again and again, it changes the entire pattern. Because now you are making a conscious choice from a place of self-awareness instead of just reacting automatically from a place of old fear. You are reclaiming your power. You are teaching yourself that your worth is inherent, not something you have to constantly perform to maintain. Please remember, overgiving doesn't come from a place of weakness. It comes from a deep human desire to keep a connection stable, to feel valued, and to feel secure. It often comes from a very good and loving heart. But when giving becomes the yardstick by which you measure your place in a relationship, it will always inevitably lead to exhaustion and resentment. Not because giving is wrong, but because you've asked it to carry too much meaning. It was never meant to be the sole pillar holding up your entire self-worth. If this video made you reflect on your own relationships, you'll find more explorations just like this in the Relationships and Identity playlist on our channel. And if you want more insights on building healthier, more balanced patterns, be sure to subscribe to Daily Reset Lab. Because sometimes, the reason you feel like you're giving too much has nothing to do with the quantity of what you give. It has everything to do with what your giving has come to represent. Thanks for watching.